The S-curve is one of the most common track planning issues that can catch a model railroader unaware. This video will show how to identify and address them. This video is based on the previous 10 important layout design tips video that I will link at the end of the video. So really there are three situations where S-curves can come about, and we'll talk about each in turn. The first issue is that we consider to be that cosmetic or scenic type curve. This occurs on your layout because you're trying to make it. You're not trying to fall track parallel to the bend torque. You're trying to maybe vary it around some scenic elements like a hillside or a river or following a road. But then you'll have these kind of gentle S-curves. The problem occurs here in the middle between the S-curves, and then this is something that can typically occur because you're going to end up having a straight piece of straight track in here, maybe non-existent, or it's not long enough that your longer cars you'll potentially could actually end up causing derailments. And this is actually the most common variety of S-curve, and this is something that I even did to myself on my current layout. And I'm going to show here briefly just a picture of the fixed solution where I actually had to add I had to cut apart another module and add a piece of straight track in between to avoid a derailment problem. The fix for this typical S-curve situation is to add a piece of straight track in between the two the curves coming in and out of it that is equal to or longer than your piece of longest equipment. Again, this will allow that your piece of equipment, your train will come in, these cars will come in, straighten out before they bend in the opposite direction. When you have a long car that's going to be bent in opposite directions at the same time, especially if using body mount couplers, is going to potentially cause a derailment, throwing the cars off the adjacent cars next to it off the track or it off the track. So here I'm going to show a demonstration of longer and shorter cars and some different lengths of straight track. A demonstration of a S-curve here with a two of a short section between the curves using these long passenger cars. Now you can see that when the train is coming into this first curve, you can see that this is arced in this direction. But then as the car comes this way, you can see here it's arced in this direction. You can see here, if I position this car in the middle, notice the large offset between the cars. This is because this car here is bending in one direction, this car is bending in the other direction. Right here is typically where you're going to have a potentially of a derailment. Now these cars using truck-mounted couplers, so they're technically not going to be a propensity to derail. But if you had body mount couplers, the body mount here, one car here, would likely pull the other car off the track at this point. So this is more likely you could need to avoid these kind of offsets versus where you can see both of the cars in the curves here are relatively in line with each other. Now, in another demonstration here, same curve as before, but I'm using 40-foot cars. Now note here the train's coming in, cars are here bent in one direction, but note here that short straight section is approximately pretty close to 3 inches long, is enough to have these in the middle here, both these cars more or less straight. They are straightening out before bending in the opposite direction. So here, but then you see there's a nice smooth operation here, no large offset in the cars. So this kind of short track here, mainly because that short track, see, is about the length of that freight car. So again, this short track is perfectly adequate for these cars, but it's not adequate for if I wanted to run one of these. Now, if we have added a longer straight between here, that will accommodate, and you see right here, this straight track here is longer than this car. So try to accommodate here. So note here, these cars are bent in one direction, following one curve, and they will come around and move the track here. You can see, and you can see on this side, they are only bent in this curve. Then in the middle, both these cars here, the track in the straight here, see the cars, there is no offset between these two cars. So this means that here, this cars here will straighten out before they start bending the opposite direction, thus minimizing, or probably more likely eliminating this problem. Another problem that you could occur with S-curves is you have long cars connected to short cars on one or either side. So here if we have a train coming into our S-curve here, this long car, and we can see it here by a substantial offset again here on one side, and potentially on the other side at the same time. See, about right in here, we have a relatively large offset on this side of this car here, and another one over here. So again, especially with body mount couplers, this kind of arrangement of long cars and short cars going through S-curves can likely cause derailments. And just as a kind of a bonus tip, you should ideally, when you're making up freight trains, things like that, is try not to do this. Is not try to take a long car and connect it to a short car. There are shorter cars than 40 feet. There are like some short, the beer can and acid type tank cars, which are typically maybe only be like 30 feet, or like an ore car, and those are like 25, much shorter than this. And you connect it to a long car, like an 80-foot box car or an auto rack, is likelihood that this long car will have enough overhang in these S-curves when it swings. Again, it will end up throwing these small cars off the track. And that's actually that the real railroads have this problem too. Sometimes they hook long cars or really short cars. That same phenomenon can occur. The second major area is the issue of the parallel siding. And this could be an entrance or an exit, because here your train will be coming straight here and then move into the siding here. This point here, this entrance curve, is an S-curve. Again, it can catch a lot of people, unaware. And generally, the easiest way to fix these is to make sure that you're using adequate sized turnouts coming, in and out of your siding. It's like in the previous video. Generally, you use a rule of thumb here. So if you're using 40-foot cars, use at least a number 4. 60-foot cars, use a number 6 turnout. 80-foot cars, use a number 8. Again, those are kind of just general minimums. If you have a ability to use larger turnouts, use them. But that's the easiest way, and that will automatically keep this angle shallow in here, which will increase this length of this curve, the size of the radii coming out of the curve onto the siding, and then allow you then to have adequate room here. These cars will come off the switch, straighten out before they bend onto the siding itself. The second way of actually mitigating that is actually using curve turnouts. And again, the one advantage of curve turnouts, again, versus here, if we were going to take a siding around a corner, and if I had a regular straight turnout, I have to start it on the straight section here. Then again, we bend it out, so we're creating this S-curve where we start bending it back around our corner of our layout. The advantage of the curve turnout is it allows that end of that siding to occur anywhere along this radius. And you can see by doing that, we actually bend the curved siding. Both sidings are bent in the same direction. Thus, we eliminate the whole S-curve completely. This allows a more streamlined track. It will allow a higher speed in and out of these tracks. And also, and additionally, it has potential of actually lengthening your siding. So you're not limited to forcing it. You're forcing your siding to start up here or start down here. You can actually lengthen the amount of available useful siding length. One advantage of curved turnouts is they really will allow you, they work really great for hidden staging areas where you could have a whole ladder of curved turnouts underneath. Again, notice no S-curves going into this ladder at all. So here you can have the most efficient operation here, the smoothest kind of entrance, as well as the longest staging tracks you can get. Again, for hidden staging areas, you want something bulletproof. The last thing you want to do is work in an area that you can no longer completely easily access. Third issue where S-curves exist is crossovers. And like before, generally if you have two crossovers here, we have that kind of S-curve that occurs between the two tracks. And again, this is kind of like the fix with the parallel sidings. The easiest way to address this is to use adequate sized turnouts for the equipment between the tracks. So if you're using like long passenger cars, use those number 8s and higher in these locations. That will allow cars to come off out of this switch, straighten out on this track between the switches, and then go onto the track here. Generally, the larger the turnout, the higher the speed that you can have. And typically, also what happens with this is that maybe not just two tracks. What happens if I got more than two tracks? Typically, like in junctions and in terminals and like, you may need to have multiple tracks. In this case, you'll have multiple sets of crossovers. If you're going from track, say, from 1 to 3, you'll note you need 2 sets of crossovers. And even in phrase, say you use long turnouts to eliminate the S-curves at these locations, a lot of times folks may end up doing is pushing these two crossovers too close together, thus creating an S-curve between the crossovers. And then again, you can still have that same problem with that derailment, with the car being flipped, again pushed in opposite directions at the same time. So a way to address that, again, this is context of the big city terminals, is to use puzzle switches or the single slip in single slip and double slip varieties here. And then these will allow, again, they don't eliminate the S-curves on these side here, but they eliminate the S-curve in the middle to allow a movement from tracks 1 to 3 in a smooth, efficient movement. Because these kind of turnouts are actually two turnouts on top of each other, you can also achieve the movement from track 1 to 3 in a shorter distance than with multiple sets of crossovers. So I'm going to show here what a puzzle turnout is. Double slip. These are two switches laid on top of each other, which will allow movements both from a through movement and a turn type movement. So here I got it illustrated here for just one track. For this track here, a train can come up on this track here. It can go straight across, I guess like a crossing movement, or it can go here and go onto this stay on this near leg, or it can come in this direction, come across, or stay over here and go on this near leg here. And the difference here between single slip and double slip, this is a double slip switch, which allows these kind of near side movements on both sides. A single slip turnout would only allow a movement from these near leg on one side. The overall caveat for these kind of things, before putting them everywhere, is again, this is kind of a big city context. These turnouts generally cost more than two regular turnouts, because they're laid on top of each other. You have like 4 frogs to deal with, 2 throw bars, sometimes even 4 throw bars in some cases. They can be complex to wire, especially if you've got metal frogs. And besides, as you can see, there's a lot of rails here. It is very difficult to look at these straight and tell which direction, if a train's going to come up this way, is it going to go straight across or is it going to turn here, just because it's just a maze of stuff in the middle. And these are best handled with needing switch. You should have electric switch machines in place, along with some sort of lighting indicators for your operators. Quickly tell them I'm going to use the turn or the cross type movement. So they can be kind of complicated and be kind of a something that will cost a lot per foot, especially with a big city, big city terminal like this, you may not have just one of these. You could have multiple of these crossing, depending on how many tracks you have. It's not uncommon with a big city terminal. You might see 3 or 4 of these all in a row, as an example. But they do have their purpose, and they can help you again eliminate the S curves. So, not saying S curves are overall bad. There are things that come up, but in order to have again a proper, efficient, and good running track plan, you need to be able to identify and address them. So please like and comment, and thank you for watching.